Hello everyone, I'm Ritaban Sangupta. Today we will learn how to connect a Cassandra database using Java, and we will also learn how to perform some basic functions using it. So the tools we are going to use today are Cassandra SQL Shell and Eclipse as our IDE. First, let's have a look into our Cassandra SQL Shell. Okay, so this is our Cassandra SQL Shell. First thing we have to do is we will create a key space. I already have my code written in a notepad. I'm going to use the same code here. I'll be explaining the code once it is written. Okay, so we have created a key space using the name demo1. So if we this first thing we'll use this key space demo1 and we'll try to see what is inside this demo1. So we can see there we cannot see any tables inside it, but we can see what all classes and what all replication factors we have used. So we can see we have used class as simple strategy. This is the replica placement strategy my key space is going to use. And here I have my replication factor as 3. This defines the number of replicas of data in the multiple nodes that I'm going to have is 3. And here we have written the durable writes is true. What it does is when the write is completed, it will survive permanently. If the server is killed or crashes or loses power as well. So the next thing we are going to do, we'll create a table in our key space. Okay, so we have created a table named users. Here the fields are first name as text, last name as text, age as integer, email as text, city as text. And here we have taken last name as our primary key. At this point, I'll show you how to check our nodes, how it is working and all these things. There are a few ways of doing this, but I'll show you a few ways. Here, if we go to our C drive, I have my program saved in this DataStax community. Here we can see a launch op center web interface. If we go into the web interface, we can see this is our cluster. Here it is showing it is having a normal load. If it was down, it would have shown this. The nodes down would have been 1. As we have only one node in our cluster, it is showing the number 1. We can see it from our services as well. If we go to our services, here we can see a DataStax community server is running. In case our nodes are down, we can try restarting this so that our nodes are up once again. Now moving on to Eclipse, I already have created a project named Cassandra Java. Inside the source file, we'll create a new package. We'll call it Cass_Java. Create this, and inside this package, we'll create a new class. We'll call it getStarted. So I can see my new class has been created. Here I can see my package is Cass_Java and my public class as getStarted. So I have already told you I have my code written in my notepad. So I'm going to use the same code here. Okay. So here we can see our drivers, the DataStax driver we are going to need for this project. all our code will be inside our main method. Here we can see we have created a cluster and a session instance. The session instance will manage the connections to our cluster. Here we are using a cluster builder method to connect to our instance. Here we are using localhost as our contact point as I'm running my cluster in my local machine. This will help us get a session from our cluster and connect to the demo1 key space. Now we have created the connection. Now we'll go back to SQL shell and see how the basic functions are done on the table called users that we have already created. Let's go back. So everything that I'm doing right here, I'll just uncomment this. Say this. Okay. So the first thing I've done here, I've just created a print line that says initiating Cassandra. So if I run my code as it is, it will return me, it will display me this, initiating Cassandra. Okay, so I can see my connection is done. Now, if I'm trying to insert into the users table, so it's fairly simple. It's almost as what we do in our SQL queries. So we'll just try to input one from the SQL shell before we try to run this command here. I'll go back to my notepad. I have one name stored for inserting into the database. Go to our SQL shell and we'll run this. Okay, so my data is inserted into my table called users. Now I'll just do a select star from users to see my data. Okay, so I can see my data has been loaded right in here. Now let's go back to Eclipse and see if it's returning the same data. I have written an output command. This will show the result set. My output. I'll just uncomment this and run this. So it is showing our data. Dolly as the second name, Salvador the first name, age, place and email ID. Now we'll try to run the same command from Eclipse. I'll uncomment this. I have already inserted a few data in my insert into command. So here we can see, along with the entry that we made through SQL shell, I can see the entries that I've done in the Java code. Here as Sengupta as the last name, 25 as the age, Tampa as the city, Ritavan as the example as my email, and Ritavan as my first name. Now I'll comment out this part once again and try to update what we have already entered. So here I have my updation command which will set my age as 27 from 25. As we are using the primary key as Sengupta, we'll search as the last name. So let's run this command. So we can see here the age has been updated. We'll go back to Cassandra SQL shell once again and see if it has been updated correctly. So here also we can see the age has been updated 27. Now let's comment out this bar once again. Let's go back to our next section. It is deleting the user. So I have a user by my name, and again I'll try to delete the same user from my database. Run the command. Okay, so here I can see it is deleted from the database. I'll go back to Cassandra once again to see if it's done properly. Okay, so here we can see the entry whose last name was Sengupta is deleted, as the Sengupta or the last name was the primary key for this specific data. Now after we are done with this, we'll go back to our Eclipse and I'll close our cluster by cluster.close command. Now moving on to the second part of code. It's almost the same, there is a slight difference in the code. So I'll be creating a new class once again. I'll call it getGoing. So once the class is created, I can see again my package is Cassandra and my class is getGoing. As I have already have the code written, I'll copy and paste the code once again. Okay. So here we can see we have created three instances. One is cluster, one is session, and one is results. Before that, I have done the same thing that I had done in the previous one. I'm just getting an output called initiating Cassandra getting started. If I run this as is, it will show this part of my code. Let's see if it's working. Yes, so it is initiating the Cassandra. Okay. And as I already had these details in the table, from here we can see the table. We already have these details in the table, so that is also showing in my Eclipse output. But as I had deleted this record, I'll go back to the get started one. As I had deleted this record, so I cannot see the same record once again in my code. If I go back to the present one, here also we can see we are writing the code in the main method once again here, and we are again creating a method called cluster builder that helps us connect to our instances. We are adding a contact point. Instead of localhost, we have used the contact point as our loopback. As my cluster is running in my local system, then we have used a retry policy. What does this retry policy do? In case of a failure, this retry policy tries to write to the node once again so that the write is complete. And here we have used a load balancing policy. As we are using a single DC right now, we do not have multiple DCs. This is of no interest for us right now. And here we can see it is connecting, the session is connecting to the cluster and connecting to our key space demo 1. After this, we have our select statement once again. This is a little bit different from the previous one that we were using. I'll uncomment this so that I can show you what is going on here. Okay, so we have created a prepare statement here. What prepare statement does is it will take the values as variables, and when we bind our statement by this bound statement command, we can get the values just by executing the session. We do not have to explicitly run the command once again. So we'll just run this program and see if my data, the last name is Sengupta, the primary key, and these details are in my table once again. Let's run this. So we can see my data is back in my table. If we go back to the SQL shell once again and check, yes, my data is back. Okay, let's go back. Let's comment out this section once again. Sorry. So now we'll go to the update section. We did the update section previously as well. Again, we are doing the update section, but again we are using the same kind of command as we used here for inserting the command, inserting the details into my database. I'll just run this and see if my data, the last name is Sengupta that I inserted right now, has been updated with the age of 27. Here we can see we have inserted the age as 25, and I want to change the date to say 26. So let's see if it does that. Okay, so we can see here our data is again changed. The data has been updated. My age has been updated to 26. If we go back to the SQL command once again and check, yes, from the SQL command also my data seems to be updated. Now I'll comment out this section once again, and I'll go back to the next section of deleting. We have already done the delete command once. We'll again do it a different way, in the same way that we are doing in this set of program, the get going part. Here again we are trying to delete the same data. The last name is Sengupta as a primary key. Here we can see we are again using the session. Whenever we are executing the session, the data will get deleted. We do not have to run the same query once again. Let's run it and see if it gets deleted. Yes, so we can see the data has been deleted from here. We'll check in SQL shell once again. Yes, the data is deleted. And after this is done, we'll get back to our Eclipse code and close the cluster once again by this cluster.close. So we have learned how to connect to Cassandra database via Java, and we have learned to perform some basic functions to the table like inserting, updating or deleting in the table, and we have also seen how we can create a key space and see what all things are specified in the key space. Thank you for watching.